The average Toronto home costs $1.1 million. These 12 Canadian towns sell homes for less than a used car. We are talking listed properties under $50,000, from Quebec lakefronts to Manitoba mining camps to maritime mill towns. The deals are real, but so are the reasons behind them. Population collapse, factory closures, geographic isolation, and economic abandonment. Every one of these towns has a catch. Whether a hospital is over 100 kilometers away, broadband barely functions, or an entire local economy simply vanished. We are counting them all down, starting with a remote cottage town deep in the Quebec wilderness. In the 12th place, Lac-Édouard sits deep in Quebec's Mauricie region, where the promise of cheap lakefront collides with the stark costs of isolation. Seasonal cottages and fixer-uppers routinely list below $50,000, some as low as $18,000, drawing retirees and off-grid buyers looking for a bargain. But the average home price, hovering around $78,000, masks a shrinking, aging population and a vacancy rate near 30%. The town's main employer, a forestry mill, closed over a decade ago, leaving property values adrift and municipal debt climbing to 38% of annual revenue. Essential services are distant. The nearest full hospital is 84 kilometers away, and there is no local clinic. Internet access depends on Starlink satellite, fast enough at 100 megabits, but with high latency and no fiber in sight. Chronic respiratory illness rates run 12% above the national average, a legacy of wood dust and delayed medical care. For buyers, Lac-Édouard's low prices come bundled with long drives, limited infrastructure, and the real costs of living on the margins. In 11th place, Smooth Rock Falls in northern Ontario stands as a textbook example of what happens when a single industry town loses its economic anchor. After the pulp and paper mill closed, the municipality was left with surplus land and vacant homes, many now offered at prices far below the national average. While the average listing hovers around $144,000, municipal lots and former industrial parcels can be acquired for less than $10,000, and detached houses occasionally surface below the $50,000 mark. The population has dropped 7% since the last census, and the nearest hospital sits 70 kilometers away in Kapuskasing, making even basic medical care a logistical challenge. Internet connectivity is limited to patchy 25 megabit DSL from Xplornet, a barrier for remote workers considering relocation. Municipal finances are under strain, with a debt-to-revenue ratio of 44%, leaving little room for infrastructure upgrades or service expansion. For buyers, the promise of cheap property comes with the reality of fiscal stress and limited amenities. In 10th place, Saint-Léon-le-Grand edges into view as a lakeshore town where vacancy and seasonal rhythms shape daily life. The average home lists for $86,400, but a striking 31% of detached houses sit empty, many waiting for summer cottagers who arrive, then vanish with the first frost. The closure of the Kruger paper mill in 2012 left a lasting mark, erasing nearly a third of local jobs and cutting deep into municipal revenue. While a twice-daily intercity bus still connects Hearst residents to Trois-Rivières, the nearest hospital remains 72 kilometers away, and internet service lags behind at just 15 megabits per second on Bell's aging DSL lines. for the growing population of seniors. These gaps carry real consequences. A 2023 NGO report found that 18% of older residents struggle to access fresh food each month, a rate well above the provincial average. School doors closed in 2019, leaving families to send children out of town for education. In Saint-Léon-le-Grand, the promise of affordable lakeside property comes with the reality of thin services and the quiet erosion of community life. Number 9, Leaf Rapids stands as a stark example of what happens when a purpose-built mining town loses its reason to exist. Conceived in the 1970s to serve a single copper operation, the town's fortunes collapsed with the mine closure in 2002. Today, the average home lists for just under $90,000. But the real story lies in the details. 1 in 5 homes sits vacant, and nearly a third are officially rated in poor condition. The nearest full-service hospital is in the Pass, a 2-hour drive to the south, and the only regular connection out is a weekly shuttle. Internet access lags far behind the national average. Northwestel's DSL crawls at 10 megabits per second, and the Rural Internet Index ranks Leaf Rapids 42nd out of 100. Provincial grants have kept water and road systems functional, but the infrastructure shows its age. Population has dropped 12% since the last census. With 30% of dwellings considered substandard, buyers face a real risk of inheriting not just a cheap home, but a major repair bill. In Leaf Rapids, headline affordability is inseparable from the realities of extreme remoteness and structural decay. 8th place, Joggins, Nova Scotia, stands at the intersection of natural wonder and economic fragility. The UNESCO designation of its fossil cliffs draws tens of thousands of tourists each summer, injecting much-needed revenue into a town where the median home lists for just over $92,000. And fixer-uppers sometimes appear below $50,000. Yet, beneath the surface, the seasonal nature of tourism shapes everything. Most jobs are part-time, and the population has dropped 6% in 5 years. With a median age of 49, the town leans older, and opportunities for steady, year-round work remain scarce. The closure of the last coal mine in 1993 ended a century of industrial employment, and attempts to revive mining failed by 2018, leaving behind only a brief surge in unemployment and a municipal loan that was never repaid. Broadband coverage is split. Eastlink cable provides 50 megabits per second in the core, but outlying homes rely on satellite speeds that rarely top 20 megabits per second. Flooding remains a persistent risk. 2018 brought $750,000 in damage, a heavy burden for a small tax base. While Joggins's fossil heritage offers a lifeline, the reality is a town caught between world recognition and the hard limits of geography, climate, and a shrinking year-round economy. Number 7, Flin straddles the border between Manitoba and Saskatchewan as a rare example of a declining mining town that still retains key services. The average home lists at $156,000, but a steady trickle of older miner units surfaces below the $50,000 mark. Properties built for the workforce of Hudbay Minerals, now left behind after 500 jobs vanished in 2019 when the mine scaled down. Despite the economic blow, Flin-Flon's core infrastructure remains intact. A regional hospital operates within town limits, offering acute care that is out of reach for most towns in this price bracket. High-speed fiber delivered by SaskTel covers the main neighborhoods with speeds up to 100 megabits. That is a sharp contrast to the patchy LTE that drops to 15 or 20 megabits on the outskirts. The population has fallen 8% since the last census, but the vacancy rate sits at 12%, lower than in many other resource towns. Investors eye the surplus minor housing as potential rental stock, drawn by the rare combination of robust connectivity and healthcare. Yet the shadow of municipal debt, now 46% of annual revenue, hangs over any prospect of recovery, and the scars of mass layoffs remain visible in shuttered storefronts and shrinking school enrollments. Flin-Flon's bargain homes come bundled with both a functioning service corps and the persistent uncertainty of a town in transition. Number 6, Val-des-Sources, Quebec, stands as a case study in the limits of rebranding when deeper structural issues remain unresolved. Once known as asbestos, the town shed its infamous name in 2020, hoping to attract new residents and investment after the mine's closure. In 2011, erased its economic foundation. Yet, the numbers tell a sobering story. The average home lists at $81,500, but with a population of just 753, down 9% in 5 years, and a vacancy rate of 34%. Empty houses outnumber new arrivals by a wide margin. The nearest hospital sits 68 kilometers away, and the only reliable internet comes from satellite, topping out at 30 megabits per second. For remote workers, this means lag and limits, not opportunity. Municipal debt now consumes 42% of annual revenue, a burden that stifles any real hope of infrastructure upgrades or service restoration. Modest lake tourism brings a trickle of seasonal visitors, but no lasting economic engine. The town's story raises an uncomfortable question. Can a new name and a fresh logo reverse the effects of industrial decline? Or does the reality of distance, debt, and digital isolation set a hard ceiling on recovery? In Val-des-Sources, the gap between promise and daily life is measured in empty homes and slow connections. Number 5. Drumheller sits at the edge of Alberta's Badlands, where the legacy of coal mining has given way to a new identity built on tourism and the stark beauty of eroded hills. While the average home in town lists for over $200,000, a different story plays out on the outskirts. Peripheral parcels, abandoned farmsteads, and edge of town lots regularly surface for $30,000 to $45,000, drawing artists, creatives, and those seeking space to build without the burden of urban prices. The Royal Tyrrell Museum, a magnet for dinosaur enthusiasts, anchors a tourism sector that now accounts for a growing share of local jobs. In 2025 alone, the museum welcomed more than 400,000 visitors, boosted by a $4 million provincial grant aimed at expanding its reach. Within Drumheller's core, cable internet delivers 100 megabits per second, fast enough for remote work and creative businesses, though rural satellites drop to 25 megabits per second. Yet, the draw of cheap land comes with a trade-off. Specialist medical care means a 2-hour drive to Lethbridge, and the population has fallen 3% since the last census. For those willing to accept distance from major hospitals and the risks of a shrinking local economy, Drumheller offers a rare blend of affordability, scenery, and a cultural scene that punches above its weight. Number 4, Grand Falls-Windsor, Newfoundland and Labrador stands out as a rare regional hub where core services remain in place even as the local economy contracts. The average home lists at just over $63,000, but it is the cluster of abandoned mill houses, many offered below $50,000, that draws buyers searching for a foothold in Atlantic Canada. The paper mill's closure in 2016 erased 800 jobs, shrinking the population by 5% and pushing the town's debt load to nearly half its annual operating budget. Yet, unlike most towns in this price bracket, Grand Falls-Windsor maintains a full-service hospital within town limits, giving residents local access to acute care and specialist services. Hourly municipal transit connects neighborhoods, and cable internet delivers up to 75 megabits per second, enough for remote work, though not at urban speeds. But the headline, affordability, comes with hidden costs. The Health Authority's 2023 report flagged a 10% spike in opioid-related emergency visits, a sign of mounting social strain as economic options dwindle. Community groups have stepped in with recovery circles and peer support programs, but the capacity gap is real. For first-time buyers and retirees, the promise of cheap housing and functional services is tangible, but the shadow of public health challenges and the lingering scars of industrial decline shape daily life in ways that price alone cannot capture. Coming to the top 3, Hearst in northeastern Ontario stands apart as a francophone town that refuses to fade quietly. Nearly 98% of residents speak French at home, and the municipality has doubled down on this identity by launching a dedicated newcomer recruitment program. The Hearst Welcome Center, funded by the town and provincial grants, has actively courted families from Quebec and abroad, offering help with housing searches, job placement, and integration into local schools. While most towns on this list have watched their populations shrink unchecked, Hearst's decline has slowed to 6%, a modest improvement credited to this recruitment push. For buyers, the housing market tells a mixed story. The average listing price sits at $118,000, but fixer-uppers and small duplexes appear below $50,000, especially on the edges of town. These homes often require significant repairs, but municipal staff point to the steady flow of new arrivals willing to take on the work. Hearst also maintains a basic hospital within town limits, rare for a community of this size, though specialist care still means a 2-hour drive to Kirkland Lake. Internet access remains a hurdle for remote workers. Bell's DSL lines top out at 12 megabits per second, barely enough for video calls. But Starlink's satellite service offers a workaround with speeds up to 100 megabits. Still, latency and cost remain barriers, and many newcomers weigh the trade-off between affordability and digital isolation. The pulp mill closure in 2015 left scars. 18% of residents report symptoms of depression, but the town's active recruitment and service corps have helped it avoid the deeper spiral seen elsewhere. In Hearst, the promise of cheap housing is inseparable from language, community effort, and the ongoing gamble on reinvention. In second place, Campbellton, New Brunswick, stands out as a border river town where the promise of affordable homes comes with both practical advantages and serious risks. Active listings routinely appear below $50,000, with the average price hovering just above $112,000. The town's vacancy rate sits at 22%, a reflection of steady outmigration since the pulp mill scaled back operations in 2014. That reduction erased about 250 jobs and forced municipal revenues down by 17%, leaving the local debt load at 44% of the annual budget. Yet, unlike many towns on this list, Campbellton retains a functioning acute care hospital within its limits, offering residents immediate access to essential health services, a rare asset at this price point. Bell Alliant Cable delivers broadband speeds up to 80 megabits per second, supporting remote work and online business in the town core. Hourly bus service connects neighborhoods and links Campbellton with regional centers, a lifeline for those without private vehicles. But the geography that once drove industrial growth now brings a new threat. The Restigouche River, which defines the town's edge, has become a source of growing flood risk. In 2017, a single flood event caused $3 million in property damage, and insurance premiums have climbed sharply since then. For buyers, the decision comes down to weighing the benefits of accessible services and reliable connectivity against the mounting costs of climate exposure. Campbellton's housing market remains accessible, but every listing now carries a warning. Affordable living here means factoring in the rising price of flood insurance and the uncertainty of future river surges. And finally, in first place, Elliot Lake stands as both a cautionary tale and a blueprint for reinvention in Canada's sub-$50,000 housing market. Once a uranium mining powerhouse, the town now promotes itself to retirees and remote workers, offering fixer-uppers well below $50,000. Though the average listing still hovers at $138,500. Over the last decade, Elliot Lake has shed 9% of its population, and the closure of the Kidd uranium mine erased 500 jobs, leaving municipal finances under pressure and vacancy rates at 19%. The city's Economic Development Office has pivoted, using a $3 million transition fund to upgrade roads and market the town as a haven for affordable living. But the reality is more complex. While local clinics provide primary care, anyone needing a specialist faces a 210-kilometer journey to Sudbury, a cost rarely factored into the price of a cheap home. Internet access splits sharply. Legacy DSL limps along at 10 megabits per second, but Starlink satellite now delivers 100 megabits per second, making remote work possible if buyers can handle the latency and monthly fees. Public health monitoring remains in place, a legacy of the town's mining past and ongoing concerns about respiratory health, but acute care gaps persist. For those drawn by the low sticker price, the calculation is clear. Elliot Lake offers a rare mix of affordability, basic services, and proactive community programs, but the hidden costs of distance and healthcare travel define the true price of entry. Across all 12 towns, one pattern stands out. Ultra-cheap housing is never just a bargain. It is a symptom. Each low price tag marks a place shaped by economic decline, shrinking populations, and eroding services. The opportunity exists, but so does the risk. These communities now stand at a crossroads. They can decline further or reinvent themselves for a new chapter. The real cost isn't listed in any real estate ad.